What's going on, guys? Welcome back to Saved for More. Now, I know I've been lacking on the content, especially here at YouTube, and that's just not acceptable, right? If you saw my last video about regret, you'll know that I was the guy up against the ropes, trying to do just enough to keep the guy off me. But that's not how I want to live, and that's not what the philosophy is here at Saved for More. So it's time to recalibrate, readjust, and say to myself that I need to stop doing just enough to keep the guy off me. I want to come back with true content that I hope helps you guys. I want to come back and really engage and really put my all in. And yeah, it's going to take more time. Yeah, it's going to take more discipline. Yeah, it's going to take me doing maybe more than I'm comfortable with, and that's all right. Because at the end of the day, at the end of the road, whenever it comes my time, I don't want to look back with regret and say, "Man, I gave up and I gave in to comfort." So we are back, and today I want to talk about what the Stoics named the Inner Citadel. Um, this is a book by Ryan Holiday from the Daily Stoic called "The Obstacle is the Way." I read this in the summer. I really recommend it. It's very, very short. I think under 200 pages. Yep, under 200 pages. Quick read, but really powerful. And the way he writes, it's set up with a lesson from history. Like you get a historical lesson and some context, and then he gives you the message from within it. Really good setup, really quick read, and has some powerful principles like we will discuss today, the inner citadel. So the inner citadel is that fortress inside of us that no external adversity can ever break down. An important caveat is that we are not born with such a structure. It must be built and actively reinforced. During good times, we strengthen ourselves and our bodies so that during the difficult times, we can depend on it. We protect our inner fortress so that it may protect us. So, I want to give the example of my heart surgery and the medical issues last year. I mentioned this in an Instagram post in the summer, but the doctor said to me when I was in the hospital there, they said that if I wasn't in the shape that I was in, if I hadn't been working out to the degree I had, I'd be dead right now. That's it. It'd been over. I would have lost that fight because my body would not have been prepared and it would not have been able to deal with such adversity. That's a very clear, black and white, on the surface example of how we must fight for ourselves when it comes time, down to the wire. If we haven't done that, then how can we expect our bodies to fight back and be ready? How can we expect ourselves to be prepared? When my body's under attack, I have to have done the work. I had to have done that Rocky 4 training montage to get ready for it, or else we're just going to collapse under the pressure. And that's what the doctors told me. But this isn't just medically, right? We don't just have to take care of ourselves physically and physically for adversities in the body. We have to start preparing ourselves mentally. We have to build up a mental inner citadel and a mental fortress. We have to be disciplined and work on building ourselves up so that we may be prepared when things suddenly get worse, because things can suddenly get worse. And ask yourself a question, just to yourself, and answer from deep down. If things got suddenly much worse, could you handle it? Because that day is going to come. So we need to be prepared for it. And that's what we're going to talk about. It's the old adage of, smooth seas do not lead to master steersmen's, and prepare the kid, don't prepare the road for the kid, prepare the kid for the road. This is that same principle. We need to toughen the fuck up. We need to toughen up, and we need to remember that we don't come from a lineage of weak individuals. We don't come from a lineage of quitters, right? Natural selection and things like that. We're born from survivors, and we have to start treating ourselves that way and acting that way. We become very, very soft, and it's easy to get soft and cushy and get rid of all adversity and just really get into our safe spaces and our little comfy bubbles. But I want to give you one more quote before we just sit down and discuss. He says, Ryan Holiday says, "You'll have far better luck toughening yourself up than you ever will trying to take the teeth out of a world that is at best indifferent to your existence. And he says the path of least resistance is a terrible teacher. So what does this all mean? And what do we do? Right? How can we train our minds in the same way we train our bodies? Well, it goes back to the conversation with Casey yesterday. I like to categorize them this way. Casey said there's the devil and the angel on your shoulder. Great. I like to call that the shadow and the steersman. If you saw my Father Effect series on Instagram, you'll know the shadow is he's the king's, the father's evil brother, right? He's all of the negative things within you. He is that voice whispering to cheat on your wife, to have another drink. It doesn't matter. Why don't you try that or this? And it takes you down a path that isn't your best self. It's that voice. That shadow is the individual that if you don't take Excalibur up, your potential, if you don't take your life in your hands, he will drive you to this place, the shadow. He will drive you to this darkness. He will drive you to a hell. And that hell is, I forget who made this quote up, but that hell is when you're on death's door and you get to see the version of yourself that you could have been. Your full potential actualized. You get to see that person and realize that you're not even, you're not even a slight bit of that individual, that you really dropped the ball because you listened to that shadow. Now, the steersman, on the other hand, the steersman is that father figure, that archetypal father, that king. The steersman is the master guide, and he will give you that path towards your best self. He will give you that path towards potential. And he does have, an authoritarian sort of authoritative view on life. He does have rules. He does have boundaries, but those boundaries are there in place so that you don't just, live that path of least resistance, because that is not the greatest teacher. That is the worst enemy, is the path of least resistance. And how you can build yourself up is by constantly making the harder choice, by constantly fighting that shadow, picking up the sword of Excalibur, which is your potential, and blazing the path as the steersman towards what you want to be. So what does that look like? It looks like what Casey was saying. The phone goes off. It's 5 in the morning. Tired. No. Steersman says, get the hell up. Then you're like, oh, you don't need to work out. Just skip it today. We'll get a workout tomorrow or something. We don't have time. Don't listen to that guy. Get to the workout and do what you have to do. And if you don't start practicing this, and the more you just let yourself go to comfort, the harder it's going to be to break out of this. Because we do get caught up in these routines and these patterns and these rhythms. That's why when I stopped making videos, I stopped for a while, and it's hard, very hard to get back into it. But I can't just sit by and let that keep passing and say, oh, I guess, I missed the boat. Just because you have done something a certain way and made a mistake here and there doesn't mean you can't go back and change things. It doesn't mean you don't have today to fix these things. So don't give up and say, okay, but I'm already too far down this rabbit hole. I'm already too out of shape. I can never get into shape. That's not true. You can always come back. You can always come back. So I think that was a little bit of a detour and a tangent, but don't count yourself out. The steersman is in there, even if he's a quiet voice right now and you can't really hear him. The more you listen and the more you exercise this discipline of doing the harder option, of really pushing yourself towards discomfort, the louder he's going to get. The more you'll be able to understand, the more you'll be able to hear him. You'll be able to get out there and do what you have to do. Um, yeah, the steersman versus the shadow is a concept that I this is just how I personally like to see it. I like to view it as on one end, there's this evil force, right? This dark figure, and that's who I could be. That's my feared self. That's the one who doesn't do his homework, doesn't study, doesn't become good at his job, can never make money then. And he's not a protector, he's not a provider, he's not a presider, and he fails in all domains of manhood, and he becomes a loser. And on the other side, there's the steersman, the one who who does the right choice, who does the harder choice, who does focus on discipline and takes his eyes off of now and looks into the future and says, look, this may suck now. This might not be a fun day, but I'm going to do what I have to do. And that individual is who I want to follow. As hard as that is, and you know, as easy as it is to just fall into comfort, I, I can't let that be my life. I can't let that be my life because we're too many people are doing that now. It's almost like I feel like there's a necessity for great men and women. We need people to really push themselves away from the comfort bubble of now because life just keeps getting more comfortable. It keeps getting more uh, it's more alluring every day to just sit there and do nothing and become complacent. We need great men, we need great women, we need people to stand up and stand out and say, I'm not gonna fall into this trap. I'm not gonna let the shadow take me out. I'm not gonna sit there on my deathbed, see my potential, and weep. I'm gonna know that I clawed my way towards that and got as close as I could. Because at the end of the day, you might not make it. And that's where the philosophy of the boxer at rest, that tattoo I have, that comes in. At the end of the day, you have to be able to put your head up. Even after a loss, keep your head up and say that I know I did everything that I could have. But you can't do that if you lie to yourself. You can't do that if you choose comfort over discipline every day. So that's all I've got. Make sure that in these times of peace, you're training yourself mentally and physically, but mentally, choosing to do the harder option while you still have the possibility and chance for comfort while the seas are calm. Build yourself up, sharpen your sword, because the battle is coming. If you don't have a sharp sword, you're going to be overtaken by the enemy. And that enemy is your smartphone. That enemy is an attractive girl who's trying to get you to cheat. That enemy is the drug you're struggling with. That enemy is out there whispering and whispering. But hold tight to the steersman and his voice. He knows the path. You know the path. You know what you have to do. Tell yourself who you want to be and make it happen. See you guys.